You know, DJ, there are a lot of great things about this job.
True.
Occasionally, one of the best things for me is the ability to have someone on the show that I can fanboy over. Someone in our industry who is so much better than us. It makes me excited they are here. Today is one of those days. Doris Burke of ESPN is joining us, one of the best in the business. Doris, welcome to Tim and Sid. How you doing?
I'm doing superb. Thank you both for having me.
Before we get into what is a very interesting NBA landscape right now, part of the montage we just played off the front was of you accepting the Curt Gowdy Media Award at the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. What on earth did that feel like in the moment?
You know, I actually found out last February, and my kids say I'm a little bit of a sap anyway, but literally if I thought about it, if I was alone for the first month after I heard, I would break down. I wouldn't sob, but I would tear up and get emotional. It was incredible. You know what? More than anything, it allowed me to say thank you to a lot of people who have helped me along the way, so it was really nice.
A lot of people want to say continually thank you to you in an era where representation certainly matters. What's it like for you? And I've seen it personally here in Toronto when young women in this industry, young women who just love the game of basketball, come up to you, ask you for your advice, and try and follow in your footsteps.
You know, obviously I didn't enter the business with the intention of, you know, sort of being the first sometimes, which I've been lucky enough to be. I just love the game of basketball. It's kind of shaped my life since I was 7 years old. But the fact that hopefully, as the women who preceded me made my path easier, if somehow I can make the path for the woman who comes behind me a little bit easier, that will make me really happy. And the other thing that's nice, and you can imagine this, guys, and I appreciate men of your generation, but 25 years ago when I started in this, particularly when I did men's college basketball or the NBA, the reaction wasn't the same. You know, there was some objection, and sometimes, you know, depending, it might be in social media, a little bit of hostility toward me, and it's changed drastically. So you mentioned young women, and it's amazing, and I'm so happy. But I love, too, when young men are totally cool with me being the analyst on an NBA game, because it does mean we are moving forward and changing, and it's a good thing.
Well said.
Doris, I've been at Raptor games, no joke, and for those who haven't been to a ton of Raptor games, the ESPN set is opposite to where normally Matt Devlin and the guys sit. And I've sat with a lot of people in and around where you were working. You were the bigger star than anyone on the court. They just wanted to flag you down and say, Doris, you're great. And I'm like, she's working. Please don't bother her. She's very busy right now. So
I'm not that busy.
No,
and if they want to talk ball, it doesn't matter who you are. I'm cool with it.
All right, duly noted next time, Doris. I will allow them. But do you, you are a massive star. What is it like to be Doris Burke going from arena to arena?
Well, I mean, I certainly don't look at it in that context. And, you know, it's an interesting thing that's changed, though, and it feels different in arenas now. And I'm going to say the reason why. And I'm going to be honest with you and tell you I have no empirical data to back up my supposition, okay? None whatsoever. But having, you know, kind of made this journey over 25 years and to feel the difference in the way people react to me, here's what I believe has happened. And you guys can tell me what you think, if this is maybe, you know, a valid supposition. You know, one, I've been around a long time, so the viewer gets accustomed to you after a certain amount of time. But I do also believe that the interaction of the players that fans see at home, so the way, you know, Kyle or DeMar or LeBron James or Chris Paul or any of these coaches react to me, it has a profound influence on those who are watching, because if the best players in the world are okay with the work that I do, then I think the viewer at home might say, you know, we should be okay with her too. And then I don't know if you were in the arena, but I was able to meet Drake last year for the first time. And I don't think this was his intention when he did it, you know, sort of wore that shirt or expressed appreciation for what I did. But when I finally had the chance to meet him, I was so thankful to have an opportunity to say, you know, you didn't do it for this reason, but I do so appreciate the fact that you sort of acknowledge my work, because somebody who is known to the level and degree that Drake is known, that makes a difference, and I appreciated it.
You know, it's interesting. I'm sure a lot of that comes into it. I'll just speak from my own experience watching you, Doris, if I may. I'm a fan of yours because I know how hard it is to ask smart questions all the time in the middle of games to coaches who don't want to do that, but are contractually obligated to.
Right.
And we all have different reasons why we enjoy watching Doris Burke do what she does. Personally, that's mine, because that is way tougher. I've done that a bit. I've done it poorly. It is not easy. To me, that's why I enjoy watching your work as much as I do. DJ, have you got anything else to add to that?
Well, I mean, I think Doris, when she mentions those players, it's a great point, but also the way a guy like LeBron and Steph, they interact with their daughters, their wives, right? They change the conversation for the entire culture, and thus you as well. The interesting thing, and you mentioned Drake, what were the followers like post-Drake? Like, did you see a massive bump? Because
No
you had
question.
to, no?
Oh my God! First of all, picture when when that night happened around Drake night, I believe it was, and I was in my daughter's apartment in the Philly area. She was a law school student at the time, and we were cooking dinner in her kitchen. And I just glanced at my phone, and a producer on the show that night said, "You are about to break the internet." And in the immediate aftermath, obviously, my daughter screamed, of course, and then my followers. I can't tell you the number but it jumped up significantly, no question about it. I'm telling you the power. And I will say this to you: both of my children have said to me, and my 26-year-old daughter loved the story. My 24-year-old son, not so much. And my daughter said, "Mom, I don't really think you understand how popular and how big this man is." And I said, "Probably not."
You need to be in a lyric is what's next. Like, that's the next step.
Yeah, that's the ultimate honor.
That's a dangerous line to walk, gentlemen.
It's to be a bar, quote unquote. So I'm told. All right, Doris, forgive us because we've just been talking about you, and we don't get a chance to talk to you often. So there are a lot of NBA-related issues we would love your take on.
Yeah. Okay.
You, whether it be on the court, whether it be in the dressing room, have seen the Golden State Warriors interact with each other a lot. What do you make of what we've seen over the last 48 hours?
Well, you know, it's so interesting. I did an ESPN radio program at about 8 a.m. the next morning. And so the only part I had seen was the bench interaction where they're barking at one another, obviously Draymond and Kevin Durant, and Klay Thompson is between them. And I've seen that a million times. And in fact, I have seen worse in the huddle and not reported on it. Okay, so that interaction in and of itself, well, you know, especially given Draymond being one of the interested parties, I didn't really react to it. It wasn't until the stories came out in the aftermath. And here's what we know unequivocally. Because I want you to consider the report Lisa Salters gave a couple of years ago in Oklahoma City, where she said it was violent in nature. And I don't remember the verbiage exactly that Lisa Salters used, but some of the things she reported, I thought, okay, he's going to get suspended for a game. And he didn't. So now you're talking about a line that was crossed in that locker room to such a degree they felt they had to suspend him. Now, was it the suspension out of concern for Kevin Durant's impending free agency, and they want to make it clear that whatever treatment happened between them won't be tolerated, or was it the content of that interaction? We will listen. Maybe it comes out in this day and age. Somebody's going to say what happened and what was said in that locker room. But to me, the fact that he was suspended speaks volumes. And who would have thought that it was internal challenges that would or could possibly derail a championship season for them? Because we know, at least as it looks right now, that healthy and fully intact, as good as certain teams are playing, I'm not sure anybody can still beat them.
Right, and who would have thought DeMarcus Cousins would be a voice of reason?
Peacemaker.
Trying to be a peacemaker.
That was a bizarre moment of it all.
It's a great point that you, and I forgot about that Salters report in OKC a couple years ago, but it's a great point as a reference point, and Ethan Sherwood-Strauss has done some reporting about how difficult it is to manage Draymond. Steve Kerr, I mean, this is at his feet, being a part of the championship Bulls. He wants to have, and he talks about all the time, a culture of joy, one of the tenets of his program. But he also talks about Popovich and wanting his team to have the appropriate fear. Well, there's a lot of fear, and clearly they're taking these games serious. But how do you balance those personalities in the locker room, especially when you have something hanging over the team like Durant's impending free agency and him feeling good about going to work every day?
Listen, I think what Steve Kerr does is incredibly difficult. And I know that this team, because of the talent level, makes it easy. But if you read between the lines and certain comments made, then I think you understand that there is a volatile mix of personalities in that locker room with Draymond at the lead of that. But I don't think he's the only one. I think Kevin Durant is a fascinating human being. And my sense is he may not be the easiest person to manage either. And I don't mean that in a, he's a hothead. I think, Kevin Durant is still sort of feeling out what he wants ultimately from his NBA experience. And that lack of certainty can prove challenging to an organization and certainly to a coach. We know that Boogie Cousins is volatile. I just think Steve Kerr's job, people think he walked into like the perfect situation. And there's no question you'd rather have talent than not. But as you guys know, the NBA coaching has often and very much been about minutes and egos. How do you manage the game's biggest stars? What are your relationships like? And I'll just point out Greg Popovich, always going back to Tim Duncan allowed me to coach him. Do you guys remember the NBA Finals where they beat Miami, where he sat Tim Duncan down? Tim goes to the end of the bench, and Tim is basically, sulking may be too strong a word, but Pop let it happen for about a minute, and then he walked down the bench. He looked Tim dead in the eye. He kind of got down eye-to-eye level, and then he walked away. And then within minutes, Tim Duncan moved his position, and he changed his physical stature and posture. You got to be able to coach these guys, and it's not easy.
Finally, Doris, before we let you go, you are in Philadelphia. Sixers have made some news. Yes. Dwayne Casey back in Toronto tonight. Celtics are trying to find the right combination of what to do. It seems like we have learned really nothing in the first month of the year in the Eastern Conference compared to the beginning of the season. Would you agree with that?
I would 100% agree. And while I believe in Jimmy Butler's physical abilities, I am not convinced that this is a perfect match. And I'll tell you the reason I say that. The one thing Brett Brown has consistently said in the last 2 years to our group when we cover his games is the most important thing that we have to figure out over the course of the season is our spacing around Ben and Joel. So Ben is a guy with elite size, speed, vision, and passing skills, and he needs targets to hit. Joel is a guy who, because of his multifaceted offensive game, and by far a season ago, he got the most low post touches. You always need great spacing around your big man. So spacing is crucial. Jimmy Butler, I would not, as great as he is, I would not call him a great floor spacer. I don't think Philadelphia is done making moves, and the acquisitions they made a year ago, Bellinelli and Ilyasova, I think they have to be on the hunt for those kinds of guys, and that's why the conversation turned immediately to Kyle Korver, because they need shooting.
Never a dull moment in this league, Doris, as you know, and I can guarantee you Drake is not your only Canadian fan.
Well, I appreciate that.
I guarantee that. Schedule permitting on your end, Doris, we would love to talk to you again. We appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, guys. My pleasure.